My name is Mara, I'm 32 years old, and I'm standing in my $2 million villa's marble foyer watching security footage that makes my blood run cold. There on the screen are my parents secretly giving my sister Bethany a copy of my house keys. My hands shake as I watch them tour my home while I'm away on business, my mother Linda pointing out which rooms would be perfect for Bethany's family, while my father Robert actually measures my master bedroom. Before we dive into this shocking betrayal, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you someone who's dealt with family members overstepping boundaries? Hit that like button if you believe your home is your sanctuary, and make sure to subscribe, because what happens next will show you exactly how I turned their sneaky plan into the most unexpected lesson they never saw coming. Growing up as the invisible daughter in the shadow of my golden child sister, Bethany taught me more about survival than any business school ever could. While Bethany, 3 years older than me, floated through life on a cushion of parental adoration, I learned early that if I wanted something, I'd have to earn it myself. The contrast between our upbringings wasn't subtle. For Bethany's 16th birthday, our parents surprised her with a brand new BMW complete with a giant red bow in the driveway. When my 16th came around, I unwrapped a used bicycle they'd bought from a garage sale with the previous owner's name still etched on the frame. College was where the favoritism reached new heights. Our parents paid for every cent of Bethany's Ivy League education, from tuition to her sorority fees, even funding her spring break trips to Cancun. When I got accepted to a state school with a partial scholarship, they sat me down for a reality check about how I needed to learn financial responsibility. Loans build character, my father said while my mother nodded approvingly. So while Bethany studied abroad in Paris and complained about her allowance being only $2,000 a month, I juggled 3 jobs between classes. I worked at a campus coffee shop from 5 to 9 in the morning, tutored struggling students in the afternoon, and spent weekends doing data entry for a local accounting firm. But those struggles became my strength. At 25, while Bethany was planning her 3rd wedding theme change, I was launching a software company from my studio apartment. I survived on ramen noodles and pure determination coding until my eyes burned pitching to investors who barely gave me the time of day. Every rejection letter became fuel for my fire. Every dismissive venture capitalist who suggested I find a male co-founder to be taken seriously just made me work harder. 5 years later, when I sold that company for several $1,000,000, my parents' reaction was telling. "Oh, that's nice, dear," my mother said before spending 20 minutes gushing about Bethany's new kitchen remodel. The villa I purchased with my own money represented everything I'd built without their help. $2 million for a piece of heaven with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley, a kitchen that would make professional chefs weep with envy, and enough space to finally breathe. When I gave them the tour, I watched my mother's eyes calculating square footage while my father tested the marble countertops like he was already planning to put his coffee mug there every morning. "It's awfully big for just you," my mother commented, despite knowing I'd recently married Thomas. "Bethany's house is getting so cramped with the kids." Bethany had married Derek right out of college, a charming man who could talk his way into any job and out of it just as quickly. In the 10 years they'd been married, he'd been a real estate agent for 3 months, a life coach for 6 weeks, and a cryptocurrency expert for exactly 4 days before losing their savings. But according to my parents, Derek was just finding himself, while my success was lucky timing. When they got married, our parents gifted them a 4-bedroom house. When I got married, they gave us a toaster that I later discovered was a re-gift from Bethany's wedding registry returns. The family dinners, after my success, became exercises in subtle manipulation. My parents would invite us over, and inevitably the conversation would drift to my excessive living situation. "All that space for 2 people?" my mother would sigh, passing the green beans. Meanwhile, poor Bethany's children are practically sharing a closet. The fact that Bethany's house had 5 bedrooms seemed to escape everyone's memory. My sister would chime in with practiced timing, lamenting how the kids couldn't have separate playrooms, how Derek needed a proper office for his next big venture, how the neighborhood wasn't as good as mine for schools. The red flags started small. After one Sunday dinner, I found Bethany's jewelry box in my guest bathroom. "Oh, I must have forgotten it when I was showing the kids your amazing bathtub," she laughed when I returned it. Then came the morning I discovered her family photos arranged on my entryway table. "I was just seeing how they'd look in better lighting," she explained. My mother started making copies of my house key for emergencies, though what emergency would require them to enter my home while I was traveling for business remained unclear. Family helps family became their constant refrain, a phrase that apparently only applied to me helping them. The discovery that changed everything came during a security system upgrade. The technician mentioned unusual activity on my access logs, multiple entries when I'd been confirmed away on business trips. My blood chilled as I scrolled through timestamp after timestamp of my front door opening while I was in Boston, Chicago, Tokyo. Someone had been treating my home like their personal showroom, and I had a sick feeling I knew exactly who. The decision to install hidden cameras throughout my home felt like accepting a terrible truth I'd been avoiding. My tech background made the installation easy, but my hands shook as I positioned each tiny lens, wondering what betrayals they would reveal. I didn't have to wait long. Within 2 days of activation, I captured my first evidence, and it was worse than I'd imagined. My parents entered my home at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday using their emergency key while I was supposedly at a conference in Seattle. But they weren't alone. Bethany walked in behind them, followed by Derek and their 3 kids, all of them moving through my space with the casual familiarity of people who'd done this many times before. The audio was crystal clear as my mother's voice echoed through my foyer. Now remember, when Meira officially moves to Tokyo, we'll need to change these curtains immediately. They're far too modern for a family home. My stomach lurched. Tokyo, I'd mentioned possibly opening an office there, nothing more. Bethany's response made my blood boil. I still think we should keep the master bedroom exactly as it is. I love that walk-in closet. Maybe just add a crib in the corner for when the baby comes. Another baby. This was news to me, but apparently my home was already being planned around it. Over the following weeks, I forced myself to watch recording after recording, each one revealing new layers of deception. They weren't just touring my home, they were systematically planning to take it over. In one video, Derek sprawled across my home office leather chair, feet up on my custom mahogany desk. This'll make a perfect man cave. We'll put the big screen right there, get rid of all these boring books. Those boring books included first editions I'd collected over years, each one a reward for reaching a business milestone. My father nodded approvingly, even suggesting which walls to knock down for better sports viewing angles. The conspiracy went deeper than just coveting my space. I watched in horror as they went through my personal documents, my mother carefully photographing pages from my mortgage papers, insurance policies, and bank statements. "We need to know what we're dealing with," she muttered to my father, who stood guard by the window. They discussed strategies like generals planning an invasion. "If we establish residency while she's gone for more than 30 days, possession laws get complicated," my mother said, revealing a shocking level of research into squatters' rights. My sister, sweet, innocent Bethany, who could never harm a fly, suggested they start moving items slowly. "She has so much stuff, she'll never notice if things go missing gradually." The extent of their preparation stunned me. In one recording, I caught them meeting with someone in my living room, a man in a shabby suit who kept referring to alternative documentation and expedited paperwork. They were actually consulting with some back alley lawyer, but forging lease agreements. Bethany practiced signing my name on a notepad, each attempt getting closer to my actual signature. "It just needs to be close enough to pass a casual glance," the man advised. "Once you're established residents, the burden of proof shifts." My parents were paying him in cash, counting out bills from an envelope with the methodical precision of people who'd done this before. The mail interference explained so many recent inconveniences. I'd been missing bank statements, utility bills, even packages. Now I watched my mother intercept my mail carrier, chatting him up while palming select pieces of mail. She'd been building a file on my life, learning my financial rhythms, understanding when I paid what bills. In another video, she called various utilities pretending to be me, trying to add Bethany as an authorized user. The cable company footage was particularly galling my mother, affecting a younger voice claiming to be me, adding my sister, who's staying long-term, to the account. My childhood home had become their war room. When I reviewed footage from a camera I'd placed during a friendly visit, I saw them spread my documents across their dining table like battle plans. They'd created a timeline of my business trips, marked patterns in my travel schedule, identified the longest stretches I'd be away. "The Tokyo trip in April is perfect," my father declared. 3 weeks is enough time to establish everything. They'd already told extended family I was planning to relocate permanently, testing the waters for support. According to Bethany's social media, which I now monitored obsessively, she was embarking on an exciting new chapter and grateful for family opportunities. The neighborhood preparation was perhaps the most insidious part. I discovered they'd been introducing themselves to my neighbors as the family taking care of Myra's place while she transitions abroad. Mrs. Chen next door thought I was moving to Japan permanently because my mother had tearfully confided about my big decision over the fence. The HOA president believed I'd asked my family to handle the property transfer to avoid tax complications. They'd even attended a neighborhood barbecue, in my absence, with Derek introducing himself as the soon-to-be new owner, promising to maintain the property's standards while adding family-friendly touches. The children were being used as pawns in this sick game. In multiple recordings, I heard them referring to my home as our new house, excitedly claiming bedrooms and planning where their toys would go. The youngest, only 5, had drawn pictures of their family in my house, encouraged by Bethany to imagine living in Aunt Myra's beautiful villa. They'd enrolled the kids in my district's prestigious private school, using my address on the applications. The acceptance letters were being sent to my home, intercepted by my mother during her illegal visits. When I called the school, posing as a concerned neighbor, they confirmed the enrollment, gushing about how wonderful it was that I was providing such stability for my nieces and nephew during my international transition. The financial fraud attempts were amateur, but persistent. My bank security footage, which my lawyer later subpoenaed, showed my mother attempting to access my accounts on 3 separate occasions. She'd memorized my account numbers from the photographed documents, but couldn't get past the security questions. The bank manager, thankfully, was suspicious enough to flag the attempts. My investment accounts showed similar intrusion attempts, with someone trying to add Bethany as a beneficiary through the online portal. The IP address tracked back to my parents' home computer, their digital fingerprints all over the attempted theft. The conversation with Thomas started as a normal evening, me cooking dinner while he opened wine, but I couldn't keep the weight of my discovery inside any longer. "I need to tell you something," I said, my hands trembling as I set down the knife. His face went through a series of expressions as I showed him the footage, from disbelief to anger to something that looked disturbingly like guilt. "You knew," I whispered, recognizing that last expression. "You knew something?" The wine glass in his hand shook slightly as he set it down. "They came to me last month," he admitted, unable to meet my eyes. "Your parents? They wanted me to convince you to let Bethany's family move in temporarily. Said it would be good for us to have family close when we start having kids of our own." The betrayal cut deep, not because he'd considered their proposal, but because he'd kept it from me. "I told them absolutely not, that it was your house, your decision, but Myra, they wouldn't let it go. They kept calling, showing up at my office. Your mother even cried, said you were being selfish with God's blessings." I wanted to scream, to throw something, but instead I forced myself to listen as Thomas explained his position. "I didn't tell you because I thought I'd handled it. I threatened to get a restraining order if they contacted me again about it. They backed off, so I figured that was the end." He pulled up his phone, showing me text messages from my father, each one more manipulative than the last. "Family takes care of family," one read. "Don't let Mayra's success go to her head. Help us help her stay grounded." The fact that they'd tried to turn my husband against me, to use our marriage as another angle of attack, made me physically ill. "There's more," Thomas said quietly. "Your mother suggested that maybe you were having mental health issues. Said all the success might have triggered something made you paranoid and selfish. She asked if I'd noticed any signs of instability." The room spun as I processed this information. They weren't just trying to steal my home. They were laying groundwork to question my mental competence. I told her she was out of line and to never contact me again. "But Myra, I think they're building some kind of case. The way she phrased things, it sounded rehearsed, like she was creating a record." The next betrayal came from an unexpected source. Grace had been my best friend since college, my maid of honor, the person I trusted most outside my marriage. She was also a successful real estate attorney, which is why my parents' visit to her office felt like another violation. "They came last week," she told me over coffee, her expression troubled. "Asked about property transfer laws, specifically about family transfers and tax implications. I assumed you were planning to help Bethany buy a house." When I explained the truth, her face went pale. "Oh my God, Mara. They asked about adverse possession, about how long someone needs to occupy a property to claim rights. I told them it was 7 years in our state with very specific requirements, but they seemed disappointed it was so long." Grace pulled out her notes from the meeting, and the questions my parents had asked were chilling in their specificity. They wanted to know about power of attorney, about what constitutes abandonment of property, about whether family members have special rights in property disputes. Your father kept emphasizing that this was all hypothetical, just curiosity about real estate law. But he took notes on everything I said, and your mother— Grace paused, choosing her words carefully. She asked about mental health conservatorships, whether someone who was deemed unfit could have their assets managed by family. The private investigator Thomas insisted we hire was named Samuel Morrison, a former FBI agent who specialized in family fraud cases. His initial report made me glad I was sitting down. "Your parents have been planning this for at least 8 months, he said, spreading documents across my dining table. I found searches on their computer for daughter won't share wealth, legal ways to claim family property, and mental health holds for adults. They've been in contact with 3 different lawyers, though only the shady one agreed to meet. The legitimate attorneys all declined after hearing their proposal." Samuel had uncovered a paper trail of my parents' attempts to access my life. They'd called my insurance company, claiming to be updating emergency contact information. They'd reached out to my former business partners, fishing for information about my mental state during stressful negotiations. One of them, Mr. Davidson, told me your mother called 3 times asking if you'd ever shown signs of instability during the company sale. He found it suspicious and stopped taking her calls. They'd even contacted my college professors, spinning a tale about creating a celebration album for my success, but really hunting for any history of mental health issues. The social media investigation revealed Bethany's active participation in ways I hadn't imagined. She'd joined multiple online groups for family estrangement and toxic siblings, painting herself as a victim of my success. In these forums, she shared twisted versions of our childhood, claiming I'd always been different and cold, that my success had come from stepping on family members. The comments were full of sympathy and advice, with several people suggesting she might have grounds for financial abuse claims. One particularly toxic thread discussed how mentally unstable relatives often needed family intervention to protect assets. The extended family manipulation was systematic and thorough. Samuel found email chains between my parents and various relatives, each message carefully crafted to build their narrative. To my aunt in Florida, they wrote about my increasing paranoia and isolation. To my cousins in Michigan, they mentioned my refusal to help family despite excessive wealth. Every communication painted me as Scrooge hoarding gold while poor Bethany's family suffered in inadequate housing. They'd even created a fictional emergency where Bethany's son needed medical care they couldn't afford, which I'd supposedly refused to help with, despite no one ever asking me for help. My financial accounts showed more attempted intrusions than I'd initially discovered. Someone had tried to open credit cards in my name applications that were flagged and denied due to security freezes I'd thankfully put in place years ago. There were attempts to access my retirement accounts, my investment portfolios, even my company stock options. The IP addresses traced back to various public Wi-Fi locations, but security footage from a coffee shop showed my mother hunched over a laptop, my father standing guard while she typed furiously. They were amateurs, but persistent amateurs with my personal information. The forged lease agreement Samuel uncovered in Bethany's email drafts was the most damning evidence yet. It showed me renting my villa to her family for $1 per month, giving them full rights to the property for 99 years. The signature was a decent approximation of mine, though not perfect. The document included clauses about property modifications, subletting rights, and inheritance provisions that would essentially transfer ownership without calling it that. Attached were emails between Bethany and the shady lawyer about the best timing to introduce this document, suggesting they wait until I was out of the country to file it with the county recorder. The depth of the conspiracy hit me during a family dinner I attended while pretending everything was normal. I watched them perform their usual routines with new eyes. My mother's concerned comments about my work stress. My father's jokes about rattling around in that big house. Bethany's practiced sighs about the kids needing more space. Even Derek usually checked out, and scrolling his phone, participated with comments about investment opportunities he could pursue with a proper home office. They were all actors in a play where I was both the audience and the target. The only genuine moment came from my 5-year-old nephew, who innocently asked, "Aunt Mara, when are you moving to Japan so we can live in your house?" The table went silent before Bethany quickly distracted him with dessert. My lawyer, Diana Richards, came highly recommended for corporate litigation, but she proved equally fierce in family fraud cases. "This is criminal," she said after reviewing all my evidence. "Attempted fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, mail theft, and that's just the start. But I understand you might not want to send your parents to prison." She was right. Despite everything, I wanted justice, not destruction. "So we get creative?" Diana smiled a shark, sensing blood in the water. "We make them expose themselves while protecting your assets and reputation." The plan we developed was elegant in its simplicity. First, I changed all the locks on my villa, but not in the obvious way. Diana connected me with a security expert who installed smart locks that looked identical to my old ones. The keys my parents had would fit, but not turn, and each attempt would be logged with video evidence. We also installed silent alarms that would alert security without any visible sign, allowing us to catch them in the act. The security system upgrade included features that would make a casino jealous, with cameras that could read license plates from the street and audio so clear you could hear a whisper from across the room. Creating the legal traps required delicate work. Diana drafted documents that appeared to be left carelessly on my desk papers that discussed transferring property to family members. But the documents were specific honeypots containing language that would immediately reveal any forgery attempts. One mentioned a fictional trust in the Cayman Islands, another referenced non-existent tax shelters. If any of these unique phrases appeared in forged documents, we'd have proof of direct theft from my home. We even created fake bank statements showing massive debts from bad investments documents that would make my villa look like a liability rather than an asset. The disinformation campaign started subtly. During family calls, I began mentioning concerns about the housing market, wondering aloud if I'd bought at the peak. I complained about maintenance costs, invented problems with the foundation, suggested the property taxes were crushing me. "I'm thinking of selling," I told my mother during one call, hearing her sharp intake of breath. "Maybe getting a small condo instead. This place is just too much." The script Diana had prepared worked perfectly. Within hours, my parents were calling back, suddenly very interested in helping with my real estate decisions. "We could take it off your hands," my father suggested, his voice carefully casual. "Keep it in the family. Maybe we could work out some arrangement where Bethany and Derek manage it for you." I played my part, sounding stressed and uncertain. "I don't know, Dad. The mortgage is killing me. And there's this tax investigation into my company sale. The IRS thinks I underpaid." Complete fiction, but his excited breathing told me he bought it completely. "Don't make any rash decisions," he urged. "Let us help you figure this out. Family helps family, remember." The planted information about financial troubles spread through their network like wildfire. Samuel reported back that Bethany had told her online support groups that I was facing bankruptcy, that my karma was finally catching up. My parents called relatives with concerns about my financial situation, suggesting they were prepared to step in and save the family assets from being lost to creditors. The narrative shift was swift. I went from being the selfish, successful daughter to the irresponsible one who needed family intervention. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd pivoted from attacking my mental health to attacking my financial competence without missing a beat. Recording their conversations became an art form. I wore hidden microphones to every family interaction, capturing their increasingly bold suggestions. "You should give us power of attorney," my mother suggested over tea. "Just temporarily while you sort out these tax issues. We could manage things, make sure nothing gets seized." My father nodded sagely. "Bethany's been looking into property management. She could move in as a caretaker, protect your investment." Every word was evidence, every suggestion another nail in their legal coffin. Diana was building a case that would be ironclad if needed. The fake financial documents I left strategically placed worked better than expected. After one Sunday dinner, I excused myself for a suspicious long bathroom break, giving them time to photograph papers I'd left on the kitchen counter. The documents showed my company was being sued by former partners that I owed millions in legal settlements. Samuel later intercepted communications where they discussed this gold mine of information. "She's going to lose everything," Bethany wrote to the shady lawyer. "We need to move fast before creditors get involved." They were so excited about my fictional downfall that they never questioned why such sensitive documents would be left carelessly around. The pressure from my parents intensified as they smelled blood in the water. They started showing up unannounced, always with solutions to my manufactured problems. "We've been thinking," my mother said during one ambush visit, "why don't we buy the house from you? We could give you enough to cover your debts, keep it in the family." The offer was insulting, roughly a quarter of the home's value. When I hesitated, playing overwhelmed, they pushed harder. "You're not thinking clearly," my father said. "Let us handle this. Sign the house over before you lose it to strangers." Their urgency revealed their fear that their opportunity was slipping away. I began my performance of public stress critical for their narrative that I needed help. At family gatherings, I appeared distracted, checking my phone constantly with worried expressions. I mentioned sleepless nights, stress headaches, anxiety about the future. My mother's eyes lit up with each display of vulnerability. She started telling relatives she was very concerned about my state of mind, that the pressure was clearly too much for me. Bethany began positioning herself as the stable sister, ready to step in. "Poor Myra," she'd say with fake sympathy. "Success can be such a burden. Good thing she has family ready to help carry the load." The masterstroke was suggesting I might have to sell quickly to a developer who wanted to tear down the villa for condos. "They're offering cash," I told my parents, watching horror cross their faces. "Below market, but I need liquidity fast." This fictional developer became their worst nightmare. My mother called 6 times that day, each message more frantic. "Don't do anything rash," she pleaded. "Promise you'll talk to us before signing anything." My father sent texts about family legacy, about keeping properties in the bloodline, about duties to future generations. Their desperation was showing, and desperation makes people careless. Setting up the final trap required precise timing. I scheduled a fake business trip to Portland, making sure my parents knew I'd be gone for 3 days. I made a show of being stressed about leaving during such a difficult time, mentioning the developer would want an answer when I returned. "Maybe I should just sign before I go," I mused aloud at dinner. "Get it over with." The panic in their eyes was palpable. I knew they'd make their move while I was supposedly gone, unable to resist the pressure of losing their golden opportunity. Diana had process servers on standby security ready to respond, and law enforcement briefed on the situation. The stage was set for their grand entrance into my trap. The morning of my supposed departure to Portland, I made a show of loading my car, waving to Mrs. Chen next door, and driving away with visible luggage in the back seat. In reality, I drove to Diana's office where we'd set up a command center to monitor my home. Samuel had arranged for off-duty police officers to be nearby, ready to respond as concerned citizens to a breaking and entering call. We watched the security feeds like a movie premiere, waiting for the main event. I didn't have to wait long. At exactly 10:15, my parents' car pulled into my driveway, followed by Bethany's minivan. They didn't even try to be subtle. My father walked straight to the front door with the confidence of someone who belonged there, sliding his copied key into the lock. The smart lock logged his attempt, capturing his confused expression when the key wouldn't turn. He tried again, jiggling the handle, muttering something that made my mother look around nervously. Bethany joined them at the door, her children waiting in the van with Derek. "It worked last week," I heard my mother say clearly through the audio system. My father tried the key again, then pulled out his phone. Within minutes, a locksmith van arrived, clearly pre-arranged for this possibility. The locksmith, a young man who looked fresh out of trade school, approached the door with my father. "We're the owners." My father lied smoothly, showing some kind of documentation. "Lost our key, need to get in." The locksmith began working while my mother chatted loudly about their plans to update the kitchen and how the children were so excited about their new rooms. Bethany had retrieved her kids from the van, coaching them to play in what she called your new backyard. The entire scene was surreal, watching them perform ownership of my home while actively breaking in. The moment the lock clicked open, the silent alarm triggered. Diana placed the call to police reporting suspicious individuals breaking into her client's home. The security company called me following our script, confirming I was out of town and no one had permission to enter. I gave them the go-ahead to dispatch security immediately. Meanwhile, my family had entered my home like conquering heroes. Derek sprawled on my couch, feet up on my glass coffee table. The children ran wild, jumping on furniture, their muddy shoes leaving tracks on my cream carpet. Bethany was already in my master bedroom, throwing open closet doors while my parents headed straight for my office. The locksmith seemed uncomfortable with the situation, especially when my mother asked him to change all the locks immediately. "Don't you need ownership papers for that?" he asked. My father produced documents from his briefcase, the forged lease agreements they'd been saving for this moment. "We're the new tenants," he explained. "The owner gave us full rights to make security changes." The locksmith hesitated, something in the situation clearly not sitting right with him. That hesitation saved him from being an accessory to a crime, as sirens became audible in the distance. The panic on their faces when police cars pulled into my driveway was priceless. My mother rushed to the window, her face draining of color. "It must be a misunderstanding," she said, but her voice shook. My father tried to maintain his authority, meeting the officers at the door with the forged documents in hand. "Officers, we have every right to be here. We have a lease." The lead officer, clearly experienced with domestic property disputes, asked for identification from everyone present. The locksmith immediately distanced himself, explaining he'd been hired for a job, but was now questioning its legitimacy. Bethany's attempt at damage control was almost comical. She gathered her children, trying to look like a concerned mother, just viewing a potential rental. "We were just looking around our new home," she told the officers, but her story started falling apart when they asked for details. Where was the owner? When was the lease signed? Why were they changing locks without proper authorization? Derek, never good under pressure, made things worse by claiming I'd given them verbal permission, then changing his story to say I'd sent a text, then finally admitting he'd never actually spoken to me about it. The arrival of security guards from my company added another layer of comedy to the situation. These weren't mall cops, but former military personnel who took their jobs seriously. They had tablet computers showing my parents many unauthorized entries over the past months. "These individuals have been flagged as trespassers," the head of security informed the police. "We have extensive footage of illegal entry." My parents' confident facade crumbled entirely. My mother started crying, claiming families shouldn't treat each other this way. My father blustered about misunderstandings and communication failures. I arrived at the scene in Diana's car, playing the confused and concerned homeowner perfectly. "What's happening at my house?" I asked the officers, looking at my family with bewilderment. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here? The performance deserved an Oscar." I examined the forged lease with shaking hands, pointing out discrepancies with tearful confusion. "This isn't my signature," I said, "and I would never rent my home for $1. Officer, I don't understand what's happening." The locksmith chimed in that he'd found the situation suspicious, earning points for honesty. The neighbors had gathered to watch the drama unfold. Mrs. Chen looked particularly interested, no doubt reconsidering all those conversations with my mother about my supposed move to Japan. The HOA president appeared mortified, realizing he'd been duped about the property transfer. Their presence meant this couldn't be swept under the rug as a family misunderstanding. My parents were being exposed as liars and potential criminals in front of the very community they'd tried to deceive. Bethany's children, confused and scared, started crying, adding to the chaos. "I thought this was our new house," the youngest wailed, breaking my heart despite everything. The police officer's suggestion that we handle this as a civil matter gave me the opening Diana had prepared me for. "Officer, I'm not sure that's appropriate," I said, pulling out my phone. "I have security footage of multiple break-ins over the past months. They've been stealing my mail, going through my personal documents." I showed him a compilation. Samuel had prepared clear evidence of criminal trespassing. The officer's expression hardened as he watched my mother photographing my bank statements. My father measuring rooms, Bethany practicing my signature. "Ma'am, this is definitely criminal territory," he said. "Do you want to press charges?" The family meeting that evening was held at my Aunt Catherine's house, neutral territory, where the extended family could witness the truth. I came prepared with evidence Diana by my side, while my parents arrived looking haggard, their confidence shattered. Bethany had tried to rally support online, but I'd already sent the security footage to key relatives. The room was tense as I connected my laptop to the TV, ready to show months of deception. Before we start, my mother tried, "This is all a misunderstanding. We were just trying to help." But their audience was no longer buying it. I played the footage chronologically, starting with their first secret visits. Gasps echoed through the room as relatives watched my parents let themselves into my home, saw them going through my papers, heard them planning to take over my property. My cousin Sarah, who'd received emails about my mental health issues, looked furious. "You told me she was having a breakdown," she accused my mother. "I was worried sick." Uncle Robert, who'd been asked to support a family intervention, shook his head in disgust. "You tried to make us all accomplices," he said. Thank God I didn't get involved. The revelation of the forged documents caused the biggest uproar. My Aunt Catherine, a retired judge, examined the fake lease with professional interest. "This is serious fraud," she announced. "Forgery, attempted grand theft, conspiracy. You're looking at potential prison time." Bethany tried to deflect, claiming she'd been misled, that our parents had assured her I'd agreed to everything. But I had footage of her practicing my signature, discussing the fraud with full knowledge. Derek, true to form, tried to slink out of the room, but was called back by Catherine's sharp voice. "Sit down. You're part of this too." The silence that fell when I announced I had a gift for Bethany was thick enough to cut. Everyone expected rage revenge, maybe a lawsuit announcement. Instead, I pulled out a manila envelope with a red bow mockingly attached. "I heard you needed more space," I said, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "So I bought you a house." The confusion on their faces was delicious as I handed Bethany the envelope. She opened it with trembling hands, pulling out a deed and photos of a property. Her face went from hopeful to horrified as she realized what she was looking at. The house I'd purchased for $30,000 at a tax auction was, generously speaking, a disaster. The photos showed peeling paint, a sagging roof, and a yard that looked like a jungle. Located in a struggling neighborhood 2 hours away, it was technically livable, but would require massive renovation to be comfortable. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, I said cheerfully. Perfect for a growing family. And look, Derek, there's a garage you can convert to your office. It just needs some work. The garage in question was missing a door and appeared to be housing a family of raccoons. "You can't be serious," Bethany sputtered, flipping through photos of water-stained ceilings and cracked foundations. "This is a joke, right?" But I maintained my pleasant smile, the one I'd perfected in boardrooms. "Not at all. You said you needed space. This has plenty. And the best part, it's all yours, free and clear, well, once you sign some paperwork." Diana stepped forward with a stack of legal documents that made Bethany recoil. "What's this?" my mother demanded, trying to regain control of the situation. "The terms of my gift," I explained. "Very simple. Sign and the house is yours." Diana explained the documents with professional calm while the family leaned in to hear. In exchange for the house, Bethany and my parents would sign affidavits admitting to their attempted fraud. They'd acknowledge the forgery, the trespassing, the conspiracy to steal my property. They'd agree to permanent restraining orders, keeping them off my property, and most importantly, they'd consent to the release of all evidence to any family member who requested it. "This protects Myra from any future claims," Diana explained, "and ensures full transparency about what occurred." The documents also included a clause about public statements requiring them to correct any lies they'd spread about my mental health or financial situation. "This is blackmail," my father growled, his face red with anger and humiliation. "This is generous," I countered. "The alternative is criminal prosecution." "Diana, would you like to explain what they're facing?" My lawyer detailed potential charges with clinical precision: mail theft 5 to 20 years, identity theft up to 15 years, fraud and forgery up to 10 years, conspiracy charges for all 3 of them. And that's before we get to the attempted elder abuse charges for trying to declare Mayra mentally incompetent, she added. "Judges take that very seriously." The room was silent as the reality sank in. They'd gambled everything and lost. My mother tried tears again. "How can you do this to your family?" she wailed. "We're your parents. We raised you." The extended family's lack of sympathy was palpable. Aunt Catherine spoke for everyone. "You tried to steal from your own daughter. You lied to all of us. You're lucky she's offering you anything at all. Uncle Robert nodded agreement. Take the deal before she changes her mind. But Bethany wasn't ready to give up. This house is worthless, she protested. It's punishment, not a gift, I shrugged. It's an opportunity. Derek's always talking about his renovation skills. Here's his chance to prove them. The negotiations took hours with Bethany trying to improve the deal. Could I at least pay for renovations? Could they have time to think about it? They had until midnight. Could we keep this private from the community? Too late for that. The security footage had already been shared with the HOA and the school that had enrolled her children fraudulently. Your reputation is already damaged, Diana pointed out. This agreement actually helps you by showing you've taken responsibility. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. They'd tried to steal my reputation along with my home, and now their own was in ruins. The extended family's stories started flowing as my parents' facade cracked. Cousin Maria revealed they'd asked her for loans, claiming I refused to help with family emergencies. Uncle James had been told I was hoarding inheritance money that should have been shared. Each revelation painted a picture of systematic manipulation going back years. They told me you thought you were too good for us after your success, my elderly grandmother said sadly. Oh, I'm ashamed I believed them. The family's anger toward my parents grew with each confession. They'd poisoned relationships throughout our entire extended network. As midnight approached, the reality of their situation became undeniable. Criminal prosecution would mean public humiliation, legal fees they couldn't afford, and possible jail time. The house I offered, terrible as it was, came with freedom and a chance to rebuild. Derek was the first to crack. Just sign it, he told Bethany. We can't go to jail. Think of the kids. The mention of their children who were spending the night with Derek's parents seemed to break through Bethany's resistance. She thought of them visiting her in prison, of the shame they'd carry. With shaking hands, she reached for the pen. My parents held out until 11:45, whispering furiously in the corner. Finally, my father approached, looking older than I'd ever seen him. We'll sign, he said quietly. But I want you to know this is wrong. Family should forgive. I met his eyes steadily. Family shouldn't steal. Family shouldn't lie. Family shouldn't try to destroy each other. He had no response to that. One by one, they signed the documents, each signature witnessed and notarized. Diana collected the papers with satisfaction while I handed over the deed to the disaster house. Congratulations on your new home, I said. May it bring you exactly what you deserve. 3 months later, I stood in my villa's kitchen preparing dinner for my chosen family. Not the people who shared my blood, but those who'd shown me what real love and support looked like. Thomas and I had grown stronger through the ordeal, our communication more open than ever. Grace had become an even closer friend, joking that she'd submit our story to true crime podcasts. Diana had become a regular dinner guest, her legal wisdom matched by her humor and warmth. Even Samuel joined occasionally, sharing stories from his FBI days that made our family drama seem tame by comparison. The aftermath of that night had rippled through our family like an earthquake. My parents initially tried to paint themselves as victims, calling relatives with tales of my cruelty and their generous gift being a trap. But the signed affidavits were public record, and Diana made sure copies reached everyone who'd been lied to. The narrative quickly shifted. My parents found themselves uninvited from family gatherings, their calls unanswered. The isolation they'd tried to impose on me became their reality. Last I heard, they were attending therapy, though, whether by choice or court order, remained unclear. Bethany and Derek's journey with their new house had taken an unexpected turn. The first month was brutal, with Derek's renovation skills proving as ephemeral as his career choices. But something shifted when they realized no one was coming to rescue them. Derek got a steady job with a construction company, learning actual skills instead of pretending to have them. Bethany started a blog about renovating on a budget, her writing showing a creativity I'd never seen before. She sent me a letter 2 months in, not asking for money, but thanking me. For the first time in my life, she wrote, I'm building something myself. It's terrifying and exhausting, but it's mine. The extended family had rallied around me in ways I never expected. Aunt Catherine instituted monthly family dinners where everyone contributed equally, no favorites or golden children allowed. Cousin Sarah started a family text chain that explicitly banned gossip and manipulation, creating a healthier communication dynamic. My grandmother freed from my parents' poison shared stories about my grandfather I'd never heard, apparently deemed too precious for the unfavored grandchild. These connections built on truth rather than manipulation felt like the family I'd always wanted. My professional life benefited from the personal clarity. No longer carrying the weight of seeking approval that would never come, I launched a new venture with focus and confidence. The startup ironically focused on home security and family fraud prevention found immediate market interest. Thomas joined as CFO, our partnership extending beyond marriage into business. We donated a portion of profits to organizations supporting family scapegoats and fraud victims, turning our pain into purpose. Success felt different now, fuller, because I was sharing it with people who genuinely celebrated rather than schemed. The therapy journey had been transformative. Dr. Patterson specialized in family trauma and narcissistic abuse, helping me understand patterns I'd internalized since childhood. "You were trained to earn love through achievement," she explained. "But love isn't supposed to be earned. It's freely given." Unpacking decades of conditioning took time, but each session lifted another weight. I learned about boundaries, about the difference between guilt and responsibility, about how my success had been both despite and because of my treatment. The villa that had nearly been stolen became a symbol of my healing, each room reclaimed and filled with joy. Support groups introduced me to others with similar stories. The online community of family scapegoats was vast, their experiences eerily similar to mine. Golden children who expected everything, parents who enabled them, and the scapegoats who achieved despite the odds. We shared resources, legal advice, and most importantly, validation. Many had stories of attempted property theft, financial manipulation, and character assassination. My story became a cautionary tale, but also a beacon of hope. Yes, it's possible to protect yourself. Yes, you can build boundaries. Yes, you deserve the life you've created. Speaking engagements started after a local news station picked up the story. Local woman foils family property theft became national news when the security footage went viral. I was careful to focus on education rather than revenge, teaching others to recognize signs of family financial abuse. The talks led to a book deal, When Family Becomes Foe, a guide to protecting yourself from those who should protect you. Writing it was cathartic, each chapter reclaiming another piece of my narrative. The dedication read, "To everyone who's been told family comes first, even when family comes to steal." The irony of Bethany's transformation wasn't lost on me. Stripped of our parents' enabling force to stand on her own feet, she was becoming someone I might actually like. Her blog had evolved into a successful business teaching others about resilience through renovation. She'd stopped playing victim, stopped expecting rescue. Her children were thriving in public school, no longer poisoned by entitlement. Derek shockingly had been promoted twice, finally finding pride in earned achievement. They'd sent a Christmas card showing their renovated house, still modest, but now genuinely theirs. "Thank you for the gift," the note read. "We finally understand what you gave us." The villa hosted a different kind of family now. Sunday dinners included friends who'd become siblings by choice, mentors who'd guided me, and even former employees who'd become partners. We laughed freely, shared openly, and supported unconditionally. The rooms my parents had tried to steal echoed with genuine joy rather than schemes. My home office, which Derek had wanted for a man cave, now housed meetings for the nonprofit I'd started. The master bedroom Bethany had claimed became a sanctuary for Thomas and me, our safe space for dreams and plans. Every corner they'd tried to take had been filled with real love. 6 months after the confrontation, I received another letter from my parents. Unlike their previous communications, full of manipulation and guilt, this one was different. They acknowledged their wrongs not in legal language, but in human terms. They saw how their favoritism had damaged both daughters, how their greed had cost them everything meaningful. They weren't asking for forgiveness or access to my life, just expressing remorse. I didn't respond, and Diana assured me I didn't have to. Healing didn't require reconciliation. Sometimes the greatest gift to toxic families is distance. My story resonated because it wasn't unique. Every speaking engagement brought people sharing similar experiences. Parents who'd refinanced houses in their children's names, siblings who'd stolen inheritances, Children who'd been gaslit into believing they owed their success to family who'd only held them back. We were a tribe of survivors building lives despite those who should have been our foundation. The villa had become more than my home. Through the story of its almost theft, it became a symbol that we can protect what we've built, that we deserve our success, that family isn't always who we're born to, but who we choose. The final transformation was internal. I no longer introduced myself in relation to my family. Not the unfavored daughter, not the successful sister, just Mara. 32 years old entrepreneur, survivor, and builder of my own life. The gift I'd given Bethany was nothing compared to the gift I'd given myself. Freedom from seeking approval that would never come from believing love should be earned from thinking family bonds excuse any behavior. Some might say I was cruel giving them that rundown house, but I'd argue it was the kindest thing anyone had ever done for them, forcing them to build something real instead of stealing someone else's dreams. Standing in my villa now, I felt only peace. The marble floors my father had measured were mine. The closets my mother had inventoried held only my belongings. The rooms Bethany had claimed housed my chosen family's laughter. Every square foot they'd tried to steal had become more precious because I'd fought for it. The security cameras remained but mostly caught. Beautiful moments now, Thomas surprising me with flowers. Friends gathering for game night. The life I'd built flowering in the space I'd protected. The gift I'd prepared for my family had ultimately been a gift to myself. The gift of finally saying no, of protecting my worth, of choosing my own definition of family. Did you find yourself relating to any part of this story? Maybe you've dealt with family members who felt entitled to your success. Or perhaps you've been the scapegoat who achieved despite the odds. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to protect what you've built. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you won't miss more stories about standing up for yourself and building the life you deserve. Thank you for being part of my chosen family here on this channel. Remember, you don't owe anyone access to what you've earned, and sometimes the best gift you can give toxic family is goodbye. Until next time, stay strong and keep building your dreams.